Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Friday night, party night. Not really, but it is August 4th, 2023, about 10:48 p.m. here. California time. Latest activity looks like a 1.4 into Alaska. Also some movement here across the Kurokamachaca Trench. Another deep earthquake there with a 4.3, 143 kilometers deep. Starting off here with space weather activity, we did reach up into the G2 class storm with the KP index observed around KP index of 6, which indicating somewhat of a moderate solar storm here. If you are up into the Canada region, Alaska region, pending it's dark, it's potentially you could see the auroras up there right now. This is from the spaceweatherlive.com site. Here is the potentials out here across the Canada region. Looks like some percentages here coming into certain areas of Canada. Of course, across the United States, areas into the northern tier states may have a potential. Talking about Great Falls, Montana, 20% chance. Aside from that, not looking at too many possibilities there as far as the auroras go up here into the states, but definitely Canada and the Alaska region. Although looks like it still may be light out there across areas of Alaska, and of course this is all coming from a CME that kind of kicked up here, but also thanks to a basically a tilt here in the interplanetary magnetic field, which tilted sharply to the south, and that allowed a more sufficient wind stream, or solar wind stream, so to speak, to flow in to the Earth's atmosphere and create this G2 storm that was probably, they were forecasting a G1 storm. I didn't see it, but occasionally we get these incidences here where the BZ component there tends to tilt south and allow the solar wind stream to flow in at will. So there we go. G2 storm coming up, or at least right now it is. And we'll continue to watch this overnight. Pending it stays south, as far as the BZ component, we should see this thing remain throughout the, at least the remainder of the night. We'll continue to watch that. All right, far as the flaring activity goes, looks like we're still seeing some flaring way out on the southwestern limb of the sun. Probably from 3380. It's been a very active sunspot. But also notice up here, a lot of hula hoops going on here with this magnetic line feature across this sunspot with a current flare kicking off. Notice that bright feature amongst sunspot region. Let's see, which one is that? That's going to be 3387. Doesn't look very complex here, but we'll pull up the most recent image here of the magnetogram, pinning it wants to work. For some reason it really doesn't want to, but looking at this area here, 3387, not super complex. 3386, yes, but it doesn't look like that is coming from 3386. It definitely looks like it's coming from a different area. There we go. Now it wants to work. Okay, so notice this area here getting a little bit more complex in different colors. That is the area that we're watching for some current flaring right now. And again, that's going to be 3387. A little bit more complex than what that image showed earlier. So let's see. Definitely watch this one here on the western limb. Also this area right here. Far as any other sunspots worth mentioning here across the region of the eastern limb of the sun, well, a little on the iffy side. Potentially up here, there shows, looks like there's some growth going on there with that sunspot, which is going to be 3395. We'll continue to watch that, though, over the coming hours and days. 99% chance for a C flare right now. M flare remains somewhat elevated as well at about 55% chance. And 10% probability for the X flare event. Again, the G2 storm conditions prevailing. If you are up in the higher latitudes here, again, maybe extreme Montana, extreme North Dakota, you may see a little bit there on the horizon. So keep your eyes peeled. Here's the sub-aurora. Does show some active conditions stretching down potentially into Oregon and Washington. These things are a little on the iffy side far as forecasting goes. All I know is during G2 storm events and G3, obviously, and stronger events, if you're up there on the northern tier states, definitely worthwhile to go out there and see what you can see far as auroras go on the northern horizon. I would definitely be out there. I'm not even joking. So get out there, see what you can get. Definitely will be worth it if you guys can see something. All right, earthquake activity. What do we have going on out here? Here's the latest quake here across the Kuril Islands. Another deep earthquake here, 143 kilometers for that 4.3. Been watching some deeper movement quakes here across the area with very minimal surface adjustment up here. The Kuril Kamchatka has been on my top list here for some mega quake activity. It's been a while since we've seen any extreme adjustment down here. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to show and to see that this is a major subduction zone. Look at that. Well defined. A lot of accumulated stress here over time. And it doesn't take hundreds of years for that to happen. So last major mega quake out here has been a little while. And I think we're a little overdue in terms of a large-scale event out here in this area. So we'll continue to watch that. Alaska's been pretty active as well, although within the last 12 hours or so, it looks like things have calmed down slightly. There has been a little bit of activity stirring up here across the volcanoes in Alaska. Let me pull up the hazard notification system here from the USGS, which seems a little slow here tonight. Maybe it's this one. I don't know what's going on, but it seems a little on the slow side. Gonna be one of these volcanoes up here. Let's stand by here for a second. I was seeing it up there on their Alaska site. Oh, here we go. I think it's this one right here. Excuse me. So we'll pull up this volcano here in the Aleutian Trench, which has been shooting up some ash way up about 30,000 feet or so over the last couple days. Currently, this looks like Haldin. I believe that's correct. Across the area of the Aleutian Trench. It has been seeing some earthquake activity and also a little bit of volcanic activity. It was sitting around the red stage here. That's the alert level. Looks like potentially, let's see what we got here. This was put out today. We had a couple episodes here of increased explosive activity generated ash clouds, currently event ongoing, and has resulted in elevated alert status. Now, we're not going to read the complete text here. You guys are welcome to, but this is in regards to the volcano here across the area, which currently sits at a warning and a red level. On August 3rd here, which was yesterday, seismic activity began to increase in intensity. Cloudy conditions obscured satellite and web camera images. But there is a steady increase in seismicity throughout the day. And looks like some explosive activity throughout the night. Elevated surface temperatures. And, of course, some ash cloud events there for the aviation color code to be raised to the red and warning where it currently sits. This is put out today, it looks like, 2 p.m. Alaska time. Looks like this volcano has had about 6 periods of elevated eruptive activity, resulting in significant ash emissions throughout the current eruption, which started, it looks like, around the July 12th time period. It is unknown how long this eruption will last, but previous eruptions of this volcano have lasted weeks to months with repeated cycles of activity similar to those seen in the last 3 weeks. Looks like 2019, 2020 was the previous event there. So continue to watch that. Again, this volcano here in Alaska raised to the warning and red level. And of course, as you can see, sits right here across the Aleutian Trench. All right, earthquake activity. As you can see, a little bit of movement and stirring up down here. 3.7 along the Alaska Peninsula. And it's, it doesn't, it's not odd, but we have seen a lot of earthquake activity here recently up along the Aleutian Trench, further upstream, which seems to have stirred up some volcanoes here across the islands here, the Aleutian Islands. So we'll continue to watch that for some movement and some maybe some uptick there in some other volcanoes. 4.0, the Rat Islands area, 113 kilometers deep into that subduction zone. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very active region. It has been somewhat quiet. Remember, we did have an 8-pointer out here. 2019. I believe that was the last big earthquake up there. All right, California region here. Into the Lake Almanor region, a 2.0, Prattville, California. Of course, this sits right underneath the, well, this kind of looks like it's out there around the, what is that, the golf course out there where all the fancy people live. The Lake Almanor Country Club, 2.0, occurring underneath this area, about 3.4 kilometers deep. Nothing going on here across the Cascadia. Let's see what we got further up north here. Minimal activity across the Cascades. A look at the trimmer map here tonight. See what we have here across the area of the Cascadia subduction zone. Stand by here for just a second. There we go, 28. Goodness, what a drop in the number here tonight. It was a couple hundred here over the past couple nights. Dropped down to 28 epicenters here across the Cascadia. That could mean a couple things here. Could mean that things are... well, they've come to a stuck area down into the subduction zone, or the activity here across the west coast, North American continent, has subsided as far as the pressure goes. So one of the two. I'm kind of leaning towards lack of pressure out here generally across the Pacific Northwest. There's not a whole lot of activity currently taking place here across California even. One earthquake here outside of Rodeo, California. Goodness. All right. 0.7. And very minimal activity across the San Andreas Fault. At least here along the creeping segment. Further down south here, we're watching some activity stirring up on the San Andreas Fault specifically. But it looks like things have kind of calmed down here slightly. No major swarming. No major unusual activity there across the region. Yellowstone National Park, a couple earthquakes there, 1.1 and a 1.9. So let's double check and see what we got going on. Never fails. It seems to do that to me. Every time I go to the Yellowstone area, the maps don't work. It's almost like I'm being monitored and they pull the plug whenever I check Yellowstone. Really not seeing too much activity out here, although... again, we're coming up on the 24-hour threshold for the graphs here, so this is probably resetting. Doesn't look like there was a lot of earthquake activity prior to then, though. All right, the rest of the country here. Texas lighting up here slightly. We've got one oddball earthquake out here close to the Rio Grande, the Texas Mexico border area. Now, I'm not for sure what's out here besides a lot of desert. But let's see what we got for the satellite view. Looks like these look like some old ancient volcano features out here. Some lava type domes here across the area of what is this? South Texas, southwestern Texas. I don't want to say South Texas because that's more on the Gulf. But yeah, this area looks like it may be some ancient lava flows, very ancient, where this 3.7 struck. It's a relatively shallow earthquake, and looking at the map here, doesn't look like there's any oil fields out here. So a little odd one coming in. All right, the rest of the map here, let's go ahead and check out the Middle America Trench. Doesn't look like too much activity stirring up there today. Mostly smaller microquakes, no major swarm. Same for the Puerto Rico area. South America, though, getting a handful of pancakes out here with the Smaller earthquake activity, also getting into the 4 range. Some deeper movement and some shallower earthquake activity there across the Chile area, and also into the deeper regions here of the Peru-Chile Trench. Continue to watch that, though, for some activity. Here's the movement stirring up across the Curl-Kamchatka, stretching down into the Izu and the Mariana Trench area. As you can see, slight uptick here across the area of the Mariana Trench. Very shallow 4.7 earlier this evening. We are seeing some activity stretching up here as well. USGS has not caught up on it, but looks like maybe some activity stirring up there. And a handful of earthquakes here across the Indonesia Islands area. That's a pretty large cluster of earthquake activity. You can see USGS reporting a handful of those quakes. The largest, a 5.6 there in the mix, 24 kilometers deep. Now, if you remember, we have seen some deeper movement quakes here across the area of the Indonesia Islands area that has stirred up some surface earthquake activity across the Java Trench and areas around the deeper movement quakes. So we'll continue to watch that for some larger scale activity. Deep activity here across Fiji returning as we look here in the region. Latest quake, a 4.2, 563 kilometers deep there outside of Fiji. That is into the Tonga Trench. Further downstream, nothing showing up here on the USGS model as far as earthquake activity, but it looks like a 3.3 coming in right around the Kermadec Trench, potentially. Let's go ahead and double check the GeoNet servers here and see what we have. 3.7 an hour ago, just off the South Island area, off the Alpine Fault. 10 minutes ago, 3.3. That's going to be just off the north coast there. 177 kilometers deep. There's that 3.7. So it looks like things may be trying to stir up down here across New Zealand, maybe. But you never know. Let's see what we got here over the last 12 hours or so. There's that 3-pointer down on the South Island region showing up pretty nicely. That's going to be that 3.5 down here, showing up pretty nicely across the South Island stations, seismograph stations. As far as any large-scale activities, holding off for now. Definitely be prepared, though, if you're living out there across New Zealand. Major seismically hazardous area. Cluster of earthquake activity here across eastern Afghanistan. Looking at a swarm of movement, shallow and deeper activity. Also out here across the rift areas, the divergent boundaries out here across Africa. Things stirring up out here as well. Got one earthquake showing up here. Remember, this area is a separation of the continent. Here in a million years or so, this will be separated, moving off towards the northeast, so to speak. So you're looking for some oceanside property, this might be the area to purchase. 4.9 in the Tanzania area earlier this afternoon. Out in the rift boundaries. There's all the Afghanistan activity. As far as movement up here across the Mediterranean, a 4.1 in the Albania area. And I know we got some further activity here across the region of Turkey. Some smaller microquake activity, it looks like. The Atlantic Ocean, nada. Zip zero. Nothing coming in across the areas of the Atlantic for now. Definitely a little on the quiet side. But if you notice here, we're looking at, I would say over the past couple days, things have definitely jumped up here in the terms of multitude of quakes. The active conditions here across the Pacific Plate and adjacent plates here across the Java Trench have been very elevated. I know we haven't seen any large-scale movement, but we've definitely seen some uptick in the multitude of quakes all around the plate boundary here. That's definitely stirring up a lot of surface activity across the region. We'll continue to watch this maybe for some larger scale movement. The quiet zone for right now is across the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu area. Let's see what else we got here across the region. Doesn't look like there's too much more on the globe. Storm Prediction Center did see some activity. Let's see what we got here. This is going to be for Saturday. Looks like some enhanced risks across northern Oklahoma, southern Kansas, with a slight chance of tornadoes out there around the, looks like Illinois area, Indiana. So just a heads up. We'll cover this a little bit more tomorrow morning, but for the most threat out here across the southern plains is going to be some wind and some window breakers maybe out there for some hail events across eastern Colorado and portions here of western Kansas. We'll watch that tomorrow and see if they upgrade that to a moderate risk. All right, let's see what else we got here. I think that's about it, folks. Looking for some heat out here in Northern California tomorrow. Actually, this weekend's just going to cook. We're supposed to be around 105 to 110 over the next couple days. So that is it. That's what we have to deal with. As far as tropical development out here in the Gulf, we're really not seeing it currently, but this is way out. I only like to look at this map, this GFS map here, over about a week time period. And I'm really not seeing anything tropical forming there in the Gulf, which is good news, right? We got some warm temperatures out there in the Atlantic, warm temperatures out there in the Gulf. All it takes is a bad setup to create a major hurricane out there, and that's, we definitely don't want that. Right now, things are tapering off. Things are in a pattern to where anything that does develop gets shot off here to the North Atlantic or sent down south here to Mexico and out to the Pacific. But we'll continue to watch that. Big island of Hawaii. A little bit of activity here across Kilauea Volcano, but I don't think we got anything major going on there. No changes currently there at the volcanoes. Look at the live seismograph stations here. It shows pretty much calm conditions right now. Nothing really stirring up as far as earthquake activity. And yeah, we'll just kind of watch this as the Earth is being affected by the G2 storm currently. We'll see if anything picks up overnight as far as earthquake activity goes. But again, if you're out there in the Auroras, check it out. Get up there. Look towards the northern horizon underneath the dark sky, and hopefully you guys can see something up there in the northern tier states, Canada, Alaska, definitely. All right, folks, have a good one. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow morning, Saturday. I'm going to barbecue tomorrow. I'm not even joking. It's already set. Have a good one. We'll catch you guys later.